So, hello, this is Steve Wilson, and welcome to the L Spot. What is the L Spot, you want to know? Well, we're going to get a little bit into that a little later. But first, we're going to start out with introducing who created the L Spot. So, I want to introduce Dr. Rufus Spann, and he's going to be telling us more about the L Spot and then also Libido Health app. So, hello, Dr. Spann.
Hello, Steve. I want to say thank you for doing this and being able to curate everything that we're hearing today and taking us through a journey.
Definitely, definitely. I'm excited. I'm excited to let people know what's going on and what's happening. So,
Yes.
I want to first start out since we're talking about who you are. Let's start with
Mhm.
this. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, what got you to the point to becoming a certified sex therapist?
That's a great question, Steve. And to be honest with you, it's going to go all the way back. We're going to go all the way back to childhood. I've
Oh, nice.
always wanted to be, yes, I was going to say now, for some, this may sound strange, but I've always wanted to be a therapist. I knew I wanted to be a psychologist since I was 7.
Wow.
And so, yes. And I would say probably maybe 4 or 5 years later, uh, I saw Dr. Ruth. And she's a sexologist. And she's the little lady that would be on TV that would be going
Yes.
around using some very sexual terms. And, even at that age, I really didn't know what was going on. But she was very publicized. It wasn't like you had to go into like some dark corner to watch her work. You knew what she was talking about. And so I've always been interested on people enjoying themselves and enjoying pleasure and really getting to know themselves and their own body. And, that also likens itself to my own experience and understanding who I am. But then also my parents were really good with saying, particularly my mother, saying that, the intimacy that we have with people and understanding who we are in our own bodies, it's
Mhm.
really about love and that experience of sharing ourselves. And my dad was very much, it's the biology of it. This is what happens when two people get together, and this is what's going to happen if you do these things. And I really appreciate that because my parents didn't hold back on giving me what I felt were like the ingredients to make up where I wanted to go with my life and my experience. And so, you go through your natural progression of what I want to be when I grow up, and I never let that go. I became a therapist. And after becoming a therapist, I knew I wanted to continue my progression into becoming a sex therapist. So I started off with my master's in clinical counseling from Johns Hopkins, then I got my doctorate from Howard University, and then I went into my certification in becoming a sex therapist. That's so much training, 90 plus hours of training to get certified to be able to do the work that we do with people. And then after that, so many hours of direct supervision. And so that took some time. And now I've been practicing and loving it. And that's really my journey from a young person still figuring out at that point what this all meant. And now still an older person or adult still trying to figure it all out. But still at this point, I have a little bit more knowledge on how to walk myself through it and help other people at the same.
See, and that's really interesting. So there's one thing that I pull out of that I found intriguing is the fact that, with your parents, you had one that came at it more from the emotional side,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then the other one came more from the science or, biology side. So
Yeah,
it's very interesting that you had both of those different dynamics to be
right.
able to come together, and then your journey actually includes the scientific side, becoming the
Hmm.
therapist and everything. And then,
Hmm.
you come to this, the sexual therapist side. That's very interesting.
Well, if you met my parents, it wouldn't be as interesting because you'd get it. You'd be like, that makes sense. I've met your dad. That's your dad. I met your mom. That makes sense for your mom. And then, both of those are now in me. So you'll see me vacillate. I'll go from talking about love and intimacy and compassion and then getting very technical about it because having both, in my opinion, really can help somebody understanding how to stay sexually healthy and sexually active and enjoy themselves.
That's awesome. That's great. So we're here on the L spot, and people are wondering, okay, what is this thing that they're doing? What is the L spot? So what is this that you created? What is this platform that you created?
Well, we done took the L spot from the G spot. So for those that know about the G spot, and I'm hoping
Oh yeah.
everybody, yeah, I was gonna say, I hope everybody has an understanding of the G spot, but also to know that there's a P spot. And so,
Nice.
we're not going to get all into the P spot. We're not going to get all into the G spot because you in the L spot. That's where you're at right now. And the L
Okay.
stands for libido. Yes.
That's
Yes.
okay.
That's
That's
where we're
great.
at. That's where
Nice,
we're at. We're in
nice.
the L
So,
spot.
okay, so we're gonna
So
we're
I
gonna
hope to,
continue. Go ahead.
yes, no, we're going to continue with that. And what I hope to do is tickle your fancy as you're in the L spot. That's what this is all
Right.
about, is really
Ah,
stimulating. Yes.
yes. Tickle that
Yes.
fancy.
Yes, I want
Tickle
to
that
tickle your
fancy.
fancy. I want to tickle your fancy. I want to get you all revved up and pleasured up about understanding more about yourself, understanding more about your partner or partners, understanding more about how to stay sexually healthy, but also staying totally healthy. What is your total wellness? Because that's what we're looking at the Libido. Libido as a company, Libido Health as a company is looking at how to bridge your total wellness and sexual health and looking at your libido itself. And so understanding that your libido, it can be your sex drive. It's something that you see as a part of your connection to really your energetic self. And so I don't want to just get it down to the loins and the organs. I want to talk about it as just being a part of our daily experience. And sometimes sexual health or sex is put on the back burner. It's something that we think after we do all the total health, it's like, oh, and sex. Yeah, and this
Mhm.
is important for me, or I want to enjoy this. The way that we're looking at it at Libido Health and it's infused into the L spot is that we're looking at it all. So we can be talking about prostate cancer, UTI. We can talk about the G spot or the P spot, or we can talk about how you enjoy pleasure or using toys. That's going to be a part of the entire conversation because nothing's off the table. But what we don't want to do is just hyper focus in one area, but we want to broaden it to show that this is an entire lived experience that changes throughout the lifetime, and you can enjoy it in many different ways.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so let me ask you this: what is one thing that you would say that as to why it's important for people to stay sexually, active and sexually healthy?
Well, there's so many reasons for what people would say if you're staying sexually healthy or sexually active. One, it is just a natural part of us as being human beings that we have sex, we enjoy pleasure, we enjoy connection. And so that's going to be throughout the lifespan. Your libido, if we're rating on a scale from 1 to 10, can change. Sometimes for some people in their own bodies, it's, very little or no, there's nothing really there, and that's okay too. But what I want to say about staying sexually active or staying sexually healthy is so important because in doing so, you're remembering that it's okay to have pleasure in your life. It's okay to want that or desire that as I talk to those that are uh, older or more seasoned and
Right.
helping them to realize that, at 60, 70, I still have a libido that wants to go and I'm going to go with it. And for those that are younger and that are, really getting into understanding who they are in their body and, sexual orientation and sexuality, for having them a space for them to really connect with others in community and being in connection with that. And so as we talk about sexual health, being sexually active, all these things are a part of that. And the more you know about yourself, the more you know about sexual health, the more you know what it means for you to be sexually active and how to stay safe while you're doing that. I think you can enjoy it more. You actually get to evolve more and you get to play more and get to play others if you want or play with yourself. So whatever floats your boat, I'm all
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. So
yeah.
let's really get into the L spot.
Okay.
So how do you stay sexually active, and how do you define that?
That's a good question. I've evolved over the years. I first started off with thinking this is how it's supposed to be, and a lot of that's taught through either what we see in videos, movies, what our parents tell us, what we experience in our world, and so there's always that initial kind of like I understand how my sex will be. I understand how I enjoy sex or pleasure, and then as I grew as a person, not just as I grew up, but as I grew as a person, as I evolved as a person, I realized, there's certain things that I never explored. And it's like now I realize that in doing so, I may have put myself into a box and saying, that's not for me. I will never do that. And then you meet different sexual partners and you find that there's pleasure in things that you never thought you would find pleasurable. And that's what my experience has been. I've really opened myself up to different things that I find sexually pleasurable. And I've also done more with sexual play, bringing in things into the bedroom. That's like, okay, this might be out of the BDSM community. This might be a little bit of a kinky. And I'm okay with that. And I appreciate having a partner in my life that I can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
And I also appreciate the partners that were in my life that allowed me to do a little bit of that kinkiness and BDSM and, and just exploring different things. But I think why I speak this way is I want people to be comfortable with having these kind of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Although I haven't gone into details, which that's my business. But at the same time, I want people to feel comfortable to have these kind of conversations. And I know that some people are not there yet to go that deep. They're not into the whips and chains just yet. And that's fine. But if you want to explore whips and chains and talk more about that, I want Libido Health and the L Spot to be a space for that. But if you're just wanting to talk more about other things and exploring what it is to have touch with your partner or to have your best orgasm or to be able to have the best erection or pleasure, whatever that might be, I want that to also be a space here too. And so wherever you're at in your process evolution, I want you to be okay with that. And so me being okay with it hopefully helps others as we talk about.
And that's awesome. And I appreciate you answering that, because sometimes there's this stigma about talking about sexual health, and with you being open enough to talk about, yourself, and that's awesome, because that's going to make people more comfortable to talk
Yes.
about it. So if you were to put a number to it, like, a percentage, 1 to 1, 100, what percent would you say of people do you think are actually sexually healthy?
That's a good question. And so I know there might be some research, but research isn't always normed on everybody. And so this is just me throwing out a guess. And it's not even a hypothesis, because I know there's some researchers listening to this. I think that, if we're thinking about, and I'm gonna add some stuff to this on the variables on why I think this is the case, is because I think sexually healthy, I really would have to what does that mean for everybody?
Right.
What it means for me. And then I think also how much people are actually engaging in this conversation and talking about their sex. I question how much that's happening. I question why that's the case, because that's really what got Libido Health started. The conversation was, we don't believe that medical professionals, family members, friends, you and your partner, whoever, are having these conversations. And because that is the case qualitatively, we just believe based on conversations that's not happening. If I was to quantify it, I believe that it's very low. I believe it's probably below 50%. And just that people aren't having the conversation. And now I'm looking at it globally, which I know probably skews this a little bit more, because not every country is having these kind of conversations for whatever reasons. And then even the United States, we have some restrictions. But I would say, maybe it's 30, 40% having these conversations. If it's not sex ed, if it's not falling into spaces where people feel very comfortable, I don't think people are having these conversations.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, because I know, it's one of those situations where, you're uncomfortable. And a lot of times, if you don't have that conversation, then you get, to the bedroom per se, and it is not as all what you were thinking that it was going to be with that person. Because I mean, I know me personally, I've been, told I'm like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So, and I won't go into that because this is not about me. This is about you.
About me.
So, but the thing is that, I think a lot of times people assume they know what sexually active means for a person that they're, that they're courting or that they're with. But without having real conversations, things happen, where it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that you was, into whips and chains. I didn't know that you liked to spank, those kind of things. And then it's a shock, where if we have those conversations, it wouldn't happen. So that's interesting. So what would be a common myth that you think that people believe about being sexually healthy?
I think what people think about being sexually healthy is, as long as I have a condom, if that's the conversation, that's like the very basics. I want that to be a more involved, elevated conversation because that's important. Contraceptives are important. Protection is important. Being sexually safe is important, and understanding how that process works and exchanging fluids and all these things. But at the same time, staying sexually healthy, it also means like, what is the type of sex that you want? What is it where are you at with your evolution? What if your partner says something that you've never heard about that before and they want you to start exploring? You might need to do some research. Y'all might need to sit down together and figure out, what does this mean? Because when they start pulling out whips and chains and y'all don't have a safe word, I don't want to be in that situation. So
pineapple. Yes.
Right. Right. It better be something that somebody can hear. And so I appreciate as you even use that, because that itself is so important. As I've now elevated the conversation and I've taken it into, again, thinking about like BDSM and kink communities. And I appreciate the using a safe word. And I appreciate all these different terms that have come into play that have helped for people to enjoy a different level of pleasure and sex and engagement. And I find that to be sexually healthy. And that can just go into a gamut of places. That even like how you take care of your toys, how do you take care of your body parts, how do you take care of your internal organs, how do you take care of your external organs. And so as we talk about contraceptive and all those things that are part of what we should have probably captured, and for some of them, some of us were still capturing that, but I still want to talk about being sexually healthy and what does that mean beyond that. So I'm hoping we can explore that and throw in some things that you haven't heard about, get you to think about also my entire body, my entire experience, and how my health impacts my sexual health. And if I'm not taking care of my health, then you're not taking care of your sexual health either.
So I have a question, as we're talking about the contraceptive side, because there's been a lot of talk about, PrEP and, that, as a contraceptive, if you will. Do you think that, a lot of people are using it correctly, or do you think there's some that are taking that as a, cure-all kind of thing when it really isn't?
Yeah, I was going to say, I like that the words that you're saying is it could be all or some. And we know that getting into like these categories, I believe that there are some individuals that are not using it entirely correctly. And, that's where I think kind of getting into this place of either complacency or just not thinking like something else still could happen. When PrEP came along, when HIV treatment came along, it really did change on how we saw and engaged with sex. And it also meant that certain things that might have been a major thought about engaging in has probably become secondary. So what I would encourage people, if you're on PrEP or if you're using any kind of treatment, that you still think about how to make sure that you stay sexually healthy and protect yourself. Because if it's not one thing, there's still many other things that can come through sexual interactions and engagement. So that's really important to think about.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for answering that, because I know that there's a lot of conversation about that. And again, it's a situation where we need to have that conversation because we need to really focus on how to be sexually active while being sexually healthy and sexually responsible, because those are all, important things to look at. So I want to kind of to pivot a little bit. You mentioned earlier about Libido Health. And so I want to talk more about that because, that is, basically the parent, the daddy of this L spot. So I want to make sure that we, do touch base on what is Libido Health? What is it?
Yeah. So Libido Health is a digital health company. So Libido itself is the app. The L spot is the podcast. Libido Health is a company itself, and the company itself has larger branches. So as you called it, the parent, as you called it, the daddy, I was going to say that's exactly what it is, if you will. And, just looking at it as the parent that's birthed the Libido app, and then what Libido app has birthed is the L spot. We're going to look at that in some kind of generational order. But the beauty of it is the thought behind the Libido Health was my work as a sex therapist. And I realized that there are many people that don't have access to sex therapists. It is not generally talked about. And for those that may want access or seeking treatment, may not have a sex therapist in their area. It's a growing field. It's a strong field. And I believe that having sexual health brought into all corners of the United States, that's where we're starting at, is going to be really important for those that are 18 and up, because that's who can be on our platform. And so the entire intention is creating the suite of service that people can look at their total well-being, total experience. And that is centering sexual health, where it's not a side thought. It's not an additive conversation. It is a direct conversation, only because in my experience as a sex therapist, I found that many of my clients wanted to have that experience, and I didn't shy away from it. I wanted to enjoy the conversation that just went beyond just thinking that it has to be only about sex. And so as sex therapists, we're pulling all these different things in, and that's what you're going to get with the Libido app. And the Libido Health company does that by bringing in certain things that'll be a part of our phases and part of our experience for our members.
Awesome. That's great. So I know that we're going to, this is a part one of what we're talking about. So we're going to get into, more specifics about Libido Health. So the folks that want to join us again for part two, we're going to talk more about the app, and, Dr. Spann is going to go more in detail about, his L spot and all that. But just kidding. Calm down. It's okay. But definitely, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to be back with part two, and we're going to go strong with part two. And we're really going to talk about Libido Health and what this app really means and could mean for you. So is there anything else that you would like to say, Dr. Spann, before we sign off?
Well, you got to come to part two to hear more about my L spot. So I would say come to part two.
All right. Look, I might throw a little bit of mine in there too. I mean, who's to say? We don't know. You got to tune in. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again with part two.